I'm going to lead right in, though, to Patrick Schwarz. I've known him for quite a while, and I would like you to know that he does play the guitar, a 12-string, and we hope that you have your mug of joe, java, coffee, or tea at the ready, because I am so excited to introduce 12-string guitarist, author, teacher, frequent world traveler, and one of Illinois' own advocate for exceptionalities. Let's embark on the journey of reimagining special education with my friend and your kickoff speaker, Patrick Schwarz. Grab that cup of joe. Show us your mug.
Hey, everybody. It is great to be here. And thank you, Sherry, so much for what you have brought to us today so far in this wonderful conference. I am super excited to be here. And I want to kick off sharing something with people that is definite part of my life, a big part of my life. I'm an adult who has ADHD as an attribute. And so one of the things is I'm always ready to get started, most definitely. And I would like people to experience the way that I feel right now. So we're going to just do a few kickboxing moves. And also, I will be introducing a facilitator that I use. His name is Tim Totten, so he will also be here with us. So we would like to start some kickboxing moves right now. So first of all, bring your head down and up. I dare you to do this, everyone. Are you happy to be here? And the second move, bring your head side to side. Do you think I'm weird? The third move is bring your shoulders up and down. What do you think of this so far? The next move is to bring your shoulders back. And the next move is to bring your shoulders forward. And now we are going to do a few kickboxing moves. So the first one is jab. So I'm going to do a few jabs here. And the next move is hook. So let's do a few hooks. The next move after that is uppercut. So I'm doing a few uppercuts. And that gets us started. And now I would like to introduce Tim Totten, who is my facilitator. Tim, do we have you here? And
yes.
Jay.
Yes, Patrick, I'm here. Good to see you.
Excellent. It's great to see you too. We also have AJ, who's been helping us out with the whole conference. Tim and I are really honored to be here, and we get to do Zoominars all over the place. So it's very exciting to be here. So now Tim is going to just explain some Zoom features we'll use, and he is going to also conduct a poll for all of you.
Absolutely. So if you're following us right now, you're on your Zoom webinar and you can see us. There's a couple of great things at the bottom of the screen. There's the ability for you to participate in a poll, which will pop up in just a minute. But there's also a Q&A section where you can ask questions. If you have a question for someone today, you can pop in a question there, and that lets us know how to answer it. But I'm also going to be engaging you through the chat feature. So there's a chat window, and I'll be asking questions there as Patrick does his talk so that we can get some feedback from you and really make this an interactive session this morning. The first way that we do that is I launch a poll to see how awake you are, to see maybe if that kickboxing had helped start you up. So I always think what's fun in these webinars is that people who are, their faces aren't being shown, they can really look however they want. So I want to ask you the question. Tell us the truth. Are you wearing pajamas right now? And so on your screen, if you're on like a computer or a laptop, you should be able to click with your mouse. And if not, if you're on a mobile device, you should be able to click the button because you should just see the poll right now. And we're about 15 seconds into it. It's fun. We already have 22, oh my goodness, over 30 responses so far, Patrick. So have you answered the question, Patrick?
I just did, and I'm submitting. And I definitely will reveal my response after you show us, Tim, how people responded.
It's great. We're about 35 seconds into it. We have all but 6 people have answered, which is amazing that so many people have answered. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the polling right now. We have 45 results, and I have to show you, it's funny. Most people are claiming that they always dress for Zoom webinars, no matter what time of day. So that's actually great to hear. I will tell you, Patrick, I'm going to let you know, I'm sort of in between number 3 and number 2 because I'm wearing a nice shirt. But in fact, I live in Florida and it's going to be 80 degrees today. So I'm wearing shorts. I have no reason to put on dress pants. How about you, Patrick?
Yeah, Tim, I'm kind of in the same vein. So I did a keynote for Illinois CEC 3 years ago and was wearing a suit. And now I think I'm wearing a reasonably nice shirt, but I'm wearing jeans and I'm barefoot underneath. So that is a very different presentation for me. People just aren't seeing that part. So I think this is something that newscasters do sometimes too as well, all along. So we're excited about that. And thank you, Tim, for the poll. I think that's a great way for us to start. I am going to share my screen right now. And so you're going to see some slides. You saw the background that Tim shared, and I am going to go into a slideshow mode and get it from the beginning. So this should help us to get us started with the presentation part. And let's see. It doesn't want to go.
You know, Patrick, if you look over the little boy's face, it says resume slideshow, and you could just click on that, I think, and it would let you resume.
Here we go.
And you can use your arrows to go back if you need to. There you go.
This is the value of collaboration and partnership, very obviously. So the title of this presentation today is Reimagining Special Education. And the exciting thing during this pandemic, I completed a book and it's in the hands of an editor right now. And it's called Reimagining Special Education. And it's 101 makeover ideas. And it's very exciting for me to add to my list of books. I'll also be bringing forward some information today from my first book, which is called From Disability to Possibility, and my 5th book, which is called From Possibility to Success, that books that have apples on them. So what I'll be talking about today is I'm going to highlight certain practices that we have been doing for many, many years, and research that shows some new, exciting, innovating things that we can be doing that are different and that support students well and are really fun and meaningful for educators. So that is something that is very exciting too, is I'm not asking you to do things that are horrible. Actually, I think it's really wonderful things all around. So here we go. Thank you everybody for participating in kickboxing and the poll that was True Confessions. I put some of my Bitmojis up here, wanted to give you some encouraging words because this is a very different conference for ICEC than in the past. So letting you know that you are extremely important these days. Educators are essential. I think we've got a number of lawyers with us today, and I think that's extremely important too as well. So we're going to get through this, and we're going to keep making a difference, and that you're so important and matter. So that's my message for you. When I wrote my first book, From Disability to Possibility, what I did is I used stories that were real life stories that were inspiring to me and aha to me to help inform what are things that we should be doing in the field that maybe are a little bit different. And I created tenets around this. And actually, the book was inspired by a niece of mine who was 3 years old at the time. And her name is Haley. We were out in the community and we saw a person who was using a wheelchair to get around, typical thing that you see in communities. but she was 3 years old at the time, and she started doing that clinging thing to my leg. Ever have a young kid start clinging to your leg? And I'm thinking, wow, this is my own relative, and she's kind of scared or nervous about a person who's using a wheelchair to mobilize. I'm going, what is this all about? Because I've dedicated my professional career to advancing the status of people that have disabilities. But then this light bulb came over my head, and I said, oh, I need to educate her. And so what I did is I wanted to find the right 3-year-old stuff to help teach her about different mobility and a person who might use a wheelchair to get around. And if you see my slide on the left side, what I found at the time was Becky, who was the Mattel Barbie version that uses a wheelchair to get around. And so I gave Haley, Becky, she took her out of the box, and then what she did is she took Becky out of the wheelchair, took all the clothes off. That's what 3-year-olds do with their dolls. And then she asked me after that, Uncle Pat, will you play with me? Because I'm the only uncle of a series of uncles. My family hails from Wisconsin, but I'm based in Illinois right now. I'm the only uncle who will get on the floor and play with the nieces. The rest kind of just sit around and drink beer. It's Wisconsin, folks. So she asked me if I would play with her. So we got on the floor, and she had your not so average Barbie stuff. So she didn't just have a house, it was the dream house, and it was this fancy pink car. And everybody, what did we discover about Becky and the Barbie dream house and the pink car? We discovered that they were all inaccessible. So Becky with her wheelchair could not fit in the door of the Barbie dream house. And the wheelchair did also not fit in the fancy pink car. So Haley's getting a lesson right away about inaccessibility. And her particular dream house had 2 floors. How does Becky get to the top? How does she get in the door? And so she had to be kind of naked flying Becky in the wheelchair to get to the top floor. So very interesting type of dynamic. So what we did at the time is we wrote a letter to Mattel. And so we wrote about the inaccessibility of getting in the house, getting to the 2nd floor. And then the other part we wrote about is there are so many different types of Barbies. So I think people right now could identify so many different types. So there's Dr. Barbie, there is flight attendant Barbie. There are so many different things. There's a teacher Barbie, there's a lawyer Barbie, there's a Barbie that has a baby. And kind of our question is, why is this doll Becky? Could Barbie use a wheelchair? And thinking about that, so that was our question at the time. We didn't hear back from Mattel, but I want to share with you something, and this was January of this year, 2020. Barbie came out with something that's new. It's called the Barbie Fashionista dolls, and there are 2 of them here on the right. Definitely a more modern type of wheelchair to get around, and they are named Barbie. Something else I want to show you is there is a ramp to get into the door of the house, and the wheelchair fits in the door of the house. So maybe Mattel did not write back, but they certainly heard our message. So our message was, could Barbie use a wheelchair? She now does. Could Barbie also be able to get into the door of the dream house? So the ramp comes with Barbie Fashionista. Also, by the way, this was maybe a year and a half ago. This is Haley, who is now a teacher in Wyoming. She was 3 at the time of the original story. So she's now an educator, and she has an inclusive classroom. So we're going to be talking about inclusion today. By the way, we're at a Wyoming state conference for the Department of Ed, and Haley presented with me at the conference, which is just great. So thank you, educators, for what you do. And I'm really excited that Mattel has taken a few steps. So next, we have something that I'm going to ask Tim to get participant responses for. I want to ask people, what is your dream for your children? So what are things that you want for your kids in life? So I have two kids. They are Dan and Becca. And one example that I'm going to say is I want them to be happy. That's my example. But I'm interested is what is on the list of our participants? So Tim, take it away. Has anybody put anything forward? I know you're putting the question forward right now.
Oh, absolutely. And this group is on the ball. So you woke them up with that kickboxing. Mary Cusper says she wants her kids to be happy and successful. Stephanie wants them to be safe. Bridget agrees, wants them to be happy, healthy, and successful. Penny Decker, no, she's saying to somebody else. Okay, let's see. Christine Simon, I want my kids to be safe and successful. Delissa, to pursue their dreams. How fantastic. Oh, Bianca, I want them to feel like they belong, right? Joe Minter, to be fulfilled. I think that's a great answer. Another writer says, I want my kids to be self-sufficient and to be able to live a life that makes them happy. Oh, I love this one. To have friends. Isn't that great to have friends? We know how wonderful it is for people to have friends and important that is to have that. And Denise says, I want my kids to have equitable experiences.
Oh my gosh, these are not just your kind of, I would say, typical answers. These go a lot deeper, and thank you. My example was typical. So thank you, participants, for what you brought to this. And the point that I want to make with this is that parents who have sons and daughters that have a disability as an attribute want the same things for their kids. And another point I want to make is we all have a disability somewhere. So we all have gifts and talents, and we all have something that's challenging to us. And one of the things is what you just asked and answered. So I asked the question, is what you all just answered, is that being achieved? So I want to share just a few statistics pretty quick. 95% of American students with developmental disabilities do not go to college. 26 of American men and women that are incarcerated, 26% have disabilities. 70% of people that have mental health support needs in schools, so these are students, do not get the care they need. And we see the ramifications of that when we talk about school shootings and things like that. The expulsion rate and suspension rate for people with disabilities is twice that of kids without disabilities. Only 40% of kids who have emotional and behavioral support needs graduate from high school as compared to 81%. So that's really only half when you consider that. People with disabilities are 3 times more likely to live alone, and 75% of people who have developmental disabilities and 90% of people who have autism as attributes are unemployed. The state of Illinois, we're number 47 in the United States in terms of adult services for people with disabilities. The bottom 4, Illinois, Arkansas, Texas, and Mississippi, according to Disability Scoop. Now, all of you know, I'm not the king of gloom and doom. So we want to get out of this quickly, but considering all the beautiful things that parents want for their kids, why do these horrible statistics exist? And I think I found the answer. So if we go back to our major special education law that was really the first one that was for everyone. So this is Public Law 94-142. This is the first law that said the free, appropriate, public mandated education for all students that have disabilities. It was landmark. It was major. It was the first time we said the word all. It's the first time we let everyone in the door. But there were some things about this law that were a little bit problematic. So the first one, as good of a law as it was based on deficits. So in order to get services, we had to find deficits of people. By the way, I don't like that word. I don't want my deficits being showcased. And if you look sometimes in kids' files, all you see are the can't do things. And that's kind of how we base the IP goals for getting them to do some of those can't do things. At the time, what people felt the best practice is to separate it with separate, simpler. And one of the things that resulted in that is a lot of separate types of practice. So what happened is, since there were two budgets, one was for general education, the other was for special education, it existed as two different worlds. So there were separate buses. Jonathan Mooney writes about the short bus and his experiences of going on a different bus than his brother and sister. So it was separate buses, entrances, classrooms, lunch tables, and things like that. And that professional development was only separate. And here was the really problematic thing, is when educators took their jobs, is they inherited a separate system from the general system. And to a large degree, there's a lot of that still with us, because the separate budgets exist, they still exist. And it's very hard in a lot of places. We've done something a certain way for so many years and decades to get out of that. But let's get into the good news. Is every single week, I meet professionals, students, teachers, families, leaders, paraeducators who go on what's taking place and are creating outcomes in the area of education. And you know what? When I find you, I zero in on you. I say, tell me how you made that happen. And what I do is that's what I research and write about. So my books are based on research and practice, and the people who are can-do type of people who are creating a better world and inclusive opportunities for students. I want to ask a question right now. What is it that you do that puts you on this list? You're creating educational outcomes. You're making a difference. You're creating an inclusive community. I'm really interested in what are some of the things that our participants are doing to make that happen. Exciting for me is when Tim was sharing names of contributions, I know some of you. So thanks for being here. Tim, are we getting any responses yet?
We are. They're starting to come. And I did answer. I went ahead and let some people know, because there's a few questions being asked, but I don't know how much time we'll have for Q&A. So I went ahead and put your website and email address in the chat if somebody has a specific question you're not able to answer for them.
And I answer email.
And the reason I just told everybody that is that it gives people a little more time to answer the question. Bridget says, I'm a special education instructional coach and support inclusion and increased general education teachers and administration knowledge on UDL and exclusive practices every day. Rasha says research and transition. Anne Kunel, I think. I love to butcher people's names, so I apologize if I'm not great, but I like to try my own versions. Anne has a question, so we'll answer that later. I'm another response says, I make my families an integral part of my instruction, so much of the point where they are fully invested. Not all are willing, but most of them are. Alejandro says, as an administrator, I always support co-teaching and inclusive practices. Shelley Kenau says, I have two shows on Facebook. One is called Friday with Fran, and the other is #NoLimits. So That's great. And yes, Ann Keno, great. Thank you for giving me a phonetic of your last name. Judy Shanley says, I focus on accessible transportation so youth can access post-school outcomes such as employment, education, and inclusive community services. So it sounds like we have a really activated group of people working in their communities and in their schools.
And I'm so impressed, and we're clearly on the same page here. And I want to definitely make a big deal about the one that came through with families. So education doesn't stop at the school doors. So if you are collaborating and communicating well with families, that can take place definitely a lot further than just the school doors, and learning happens throughout the day. So thank you for bringing that forward. I'm going to share my screen
I
again.
you out for a second just so people can see your face again. So.
And I think that's good. I appreciate that, Tim, because I think, the different thing about this is we have to share screens, and you don't get the whole experience unless we share it. So the more different things we share, like Tim is doing, is I think the better. So thank you for that. And I'm going to go back to these slides, and I am going to go back to the slideshow based on resume slideshow, and we're back at the same slide. So thank you everybody for your responses. And so what I'm going to talk about now is some practices from the 1970s that are still with us that need to go, and talk about some things that need to be promoted instead. So the first one is the one size fits all kind of mentality, and that everybody learns in the same way. And what to do instead is to support people with their interests and passions. And I wrote a couple books with Paula Kluth. So one is called Just Give Him the Whale, and the other is a kid's book called Pedro's Whale, which is based on a real life story in Chicago public schools of a learner named Pedro. And what we did is we were consulting in this classroom, and Pedro was new to the school, and he loved whales. And he loved whales to the degree that he wanted to be doing whales sometimes, or playing with whales at times when they were supposed to be doing different things like math, etc. And so what happened is Pedro's teacher, when she saw him playing with a toy whale, and I've got a whale here with me so we can give you the visual. So this is my whale puppet. And so this is something, I think Pedro's was plastic that he was playing with. And so the teacher said, Pedro, hey, right now it's math time. We're supposed to be doing math work. So I'm going to take your whale and I'm going to put it on the choice table that you can make a choice to use it after math. And what happened is Pedro hid under the table and he started crying. The principal of the school, her name is Ms. Gomez. She came by the door and saw Pedro crying and crouching under the table. And she asked the teacher, who's Ms. Tamayo, hey, what's wrong with Pedro? And Ms. Tamayo said, students are not allowed to play with toys during the class. And Pedro is playing with his whale. So I said he could make a choice at choice time to play with his whale. Ms. Gomez said, what is it that you want Pedro to do in the class? And she said, I want him to sit with his classmates and do his work. And Ms. Gomez, who is the principal, she said, new things are scary for Pedro. His will helps him feel safe and do his best work. And she said, if you want Pedro to do his work and his best work, just give him the whale. And actually, what happened is Ms. Tamayo gave him the whale, and she started getting a lot of great ideas how she could use the whale. So for example, in math, on the counting blocks, manipulatives that kids would use, she put little pictures of whales on Pedro's blocks, and he's begging to use the blocks. And she found opportunities to embed the whale in other things at certain times. And all of a sudden, Pedro is doing a variety of other things. And when she was asking him to communicate, she would start out with a question about whales to get him talking and then go into other areas after he was talking. The idea behind this is rather than taking something away, how do we use it as a support tool for the student? By the way, something I didn't tell you about Pedro is he has autism as an attribute. And you might have guessed with some of the attributes I shared about him, but all of a sudden learning is working for him. And what we actually shared in this book was something that was different than experts were saying at the time. They were saying, if a person seems too obsessed or over-focused with a favorite thing, take it away. And we found out if you did that, you were creating a profile for a dropout. So this is a great way for educators to get to know your students, understand what are big wows, have them write about their big wows, have them use this in their learning and education, and you will find a learner that's passionate, that's engaged, that wants to be part of what you're doing and the great things that you're bringing forward. So the one size all doesn't fit. And so I want to ask a question, and I just put some favorite interests and things that people like, but I would be interested for people to share your passion or interest. And by the way, Tim's going to ask this of you, but you can go off this list. So what is your passion and interest? What makes life worth living for you? And I'd be interested in hearing some of the things from our particular participants. Tim, did anybody bring anything forward yet?
I think they're still reading the list. I will tell you, for me personally, I'm super engaged by the architecture and life of Frank Lloyd Wright. And in fact, I kind of created a different career with that, a side career, because I loved it so much. I wanted to be able to tell stories about his life and work and share it with other people, and that I now, when it's possible, travel the country and talk to people. And in fact, it's how you and I met, Patrick, is my Frank Lloyd Wright interactions with people in my storytelling. So that's really helped me to improve my own life and teach other people about his life and work.
That's a common interest that we both have, Tim. And I saw Tim on, it's called the Not So Serious Architectural Chat. And I said, I want a guy just like that as a facilitator. But then I decided I'd ask the very guy. And Tim is amazing. And right now, I'm actually in a house that was actually potentially going to be demolished, that is Frank Lloyd Wright, that we got to restore. And so happy to share that with you. So we have an example of our passion and interest. Tim, what are some of our participants' passions and interests?
Well, you may have some connection to Anne. Anne plays the ukulele.
Oh my gosh. So Sherry and Anne, and I play the guitar. Excellent.
Yes. I figure both stringed instruments, though I don't really know the difference. But I do know the difference. The size is a bit of a difference. Stacy says baking. Stephanie's passion and interest is the smiles and laughter on the faces of young children while making connections. What a great thing to be interested in if you're a teacher, right?
So glad we asked this question.
Brenda has a unique interest. Their family water skis. That's pretty great. Rasha says traveling the world and being in the classroom with students. Sarah Cox, I like the Washington Capitals hockey team and I live in Illinois. Also, Sarah likes the Seattle Seahawks. So there's clearly a geography issue for Sarah's covering the whole country. Bridget says building relationships and meeting new people, and Bridget loves traveling. And Mary Cusper says, I love sports, anything regarding sports. Seriously, Mary would watch cockroaches play soccer, LOL. That was really great.
I know Mary, so I think this is a wonderful thing. So that's fantastic.
You know, Bianca, this is impressive. Bianca runs ultra marathons, and it's taught Bianca a lot about going beyond limits and showing others that there are no boundaries to what a person can do. And I have to tell you, Patrick, I made a commitment to myself this year that I would walk a 5K every single day. And so far I'm up to 1,200 plus miles, and I've lost about 75 pounds. So Bianca, go. You go and run those ultra marathons. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but amazing, great work. And there's so many others that are coming in. It's amazing. Nicolette says, in my other life, I'm a community theater actor. Penny says, my passion is kids. I love teaching. I just love kids. I like teaching, but I just love kids. How fantastic is that? And so many others that are coming through. So you've really cranked up people's interest to share what they care about.
Yeah, and thank you people for going off the list. And every time we ask this group something, Tim, I get inspired. So I'm really appreciative of that. I'm going to share my screen back again. And thank you, Tim, again for doing the wonderful screen things you're doing with definitely bringing this forward. So I'm going to resume my slideshow here. Whoops, there we go. And then also a really great thing is I want people to think about what are your students' passions and interests. So the really wonderful thing is I get to go into a lot of schools and work with a lot of students and teams and things like that. So sometimes I go into school to support student learning. I go into schools to support transition. Somebody talked about transition before, positive behavior supports, things like that. And every single time, what I want to know about this, the first thing about the student is what are their passions and interests? Because first of all, I want to see how they're used to support that individual. And sometimes the answer to learning transition and positive behavior support is in what are the passions and interests. So it's not a one size fits all, it's individual things. By the way, I put some favorites for kids that have autism as an attribute. We have trains, whales, we have Mickey Mouse, we have superheroes, vacuum cleaners, and these give you ideas to help make a person successful in life. So my dream would be in every student file, passions and interests. The second support I wanted to talk about today is taking away skill and drill and separate curriculum in a separate curriculum and in a separate classroom. How do we come together to bring kids together to learn together? And this is universal design. So what this does is it creates access. There are three areas: representation, engagement, and expression. So first of all, representation, what that would be is representing visual, audio, using supports, graphic organizers, study guides, books that meet needs of different reading levels, allow students to use apps that highlight text, add voice, add pictures, allow for dictation. And we used to call these things cheating, and now we call it cooperative learning or creating access and finding the way a kid learns the best. The next one is let's make it engaging and interesting. So students having choice. Can they do their work alone? Can they work in a small group, a table, on the floor using technology? And for kids to demonstrate learning in the best way that they do so. So some kids need to talk out ideas. Some kids like to write best. Some kids like to keyboard. Some kids like to physically represent something. So obtuse, acute, whoops, right angle. Thank you, teachers. And so that would be physical representation or graphic representation. And then expression is, some kids do well with traditional types of means, pencil, paper, electronic tests with bubbles and blanks, but not everybody does well with that. So are there other ways we can assess? So that would be projects, models, films, demonstrations, portfolios. All these create learning access. So I want to ask people is, actually, I'm going to not ask people for this one, but a next one is I want to think about supports and ask people and think about the supports that you're going through that make things work today. So for example, I'm thinking that a number of people had coffee as a support. People that might have not had coffee might have had something else with caffeine in it. So it could be tea or soda. We all have our morning routines. Some people right now are wearing glasses. You've seen me go back and forth. Tim is wearing glasses. Some people are wearing secret glasses like contacts. That is an everyday support. When we're driving, think about what your community is like during rush hour. And a lot of our people are from Chicagoland. But this is not just urban areas. This can be suburbs. This can be rural areas. Is we sometimes need to take different routes depending on the particular time during rush hour to get to where we need to go. Also, some people will drive a couple extra blocks to get to a lit intersection to make a left turn because people might not let you in if you're not at a lit intersection during that busy time. So what I want to make a point here is everyone think about what your support plan is, but we're constantly creating a support plan to make life work for us. What we're talking about here with universal design is a support plan to make learning work for students. A big part of my life is co-teaching these days. So what needs to go is general and special education being two separate worlds. I still believe in specialists, most definitely, and the roles, but I don't believe we exist in separate worlds. How do we come together in a school? And so there are a variety of different co-teaching models. Supportive, it could be one or both people supporting students. Parallel, this is a group one. Station, it's an extension of parallel. How do we have learning take place in different stations? That can also take place in chat rooms and things like that with virtual learning. Complementary, one person in the lead, the other is doing visuals, paraphrasing, and things that support teaching. One teach, one make multisensory. This is one person in the lead. The other creates a multisensory experience, like acting something out, or it might be sketchnoting. So it might be words and sketches of what the other person is talking about. Tim and I are doing the virtual facilitative model right now. So one is in the lead and the other is supporting with polls, chat, questions, and other support means for participants. Then there's team teaching, where both people are in the lead. That can be where people do separate parts, or they go back and forth, which I call tag team teaching. And the last one is students as co-teachers, where students are in some leadership role. It could be in a group, it could be through demonstration, it could be through kids teaching something to other kids. And we can also make this happen virtually in different student rooms as well. So this is something I've applied to virtual learning quite a bit, doing some virtual co-teaching presentations, how people make that come forward. And so in my time in the field as a special educator, this has been the #1 practice that I've seen come forward that is bringing more inclusive models in schools. And I think there's definitely a right way, and I think there's a way that is not as effective, and that's when people just stay in the supportive teaching model. So it's something that is very exciting, and I do a lot of coaching for co-teaching teams, and my goal is to be able to support the teams to do all the models effectively. All the models is what's important, and it makes teaching fun and dynamic, and it makes learning fun and dynamic for kids. There are so many benefits. Since teachers are modeling a collaborative relationship, students can increase their social skills. Since there's more teaching support, kids can get more academic improvement, and teachers are bringing their bag of tricks together. There's a greater teacher to student ratio. Since people are bringing their strategies together, there's greater use of research proven teaching strategies. Teachers are modeling community with kids. Kids are picking up on that relationship. So kids are learning from that community. And teachers have reported the following when the co-teaching is going effective and there's collaboration and equity, that they feel support, motivation, job satisfaction, belonging, and fun. And also, this is newer research, is when there is a teacher that paraphrases or extends what the other one is saying, kids get more of those aha moments. I get it now, because you've made it more engaging. And it's like a human being doing the highlighting, the underlining, the underscoring of main points. And actually what they've shown is kids can learn more, understand more, and fare better on assessments. How exciting is that? Actually, Tim and I are going to do a little poem right now. So this is going to demonstrate what needs to go is outdated language and characterization, and how can we view and characterize people with dignity and respect. So I am going to read the we statements actually, I'm going to ask Tim to read the we statements in his typical voice, and I'm going to read the they statements in a scary type of voice. Tim, are you ready?
I'm ready, Patrick.
Okay, will you do the we statements?
All right. We like things.
They fixate on objects.
We try to make friends.
They display attention-seeking behavior.
We stand up for ourselves.
They are non-compliant.
We have hobbies.
They self-stim.
We choose our friends wisely.
They display poor peer socialization.
We persevere.
They perseverate.
We love people.
They have dependencies on people.
We go for a walk.
They run away.
We insist.
They tantrum.
We change our minds.
They are disoriented and have short attention spans.
We have talents.
They have splinter skills.
We are human.
And they are. So thank you, Tim, for helping me with this poem. This is by Meyer Shevin, who was a very wonderful friend of mine. He was a professor at Syracuse University, and he passed away a couple of years ago. He let me use this in my first book, but it's probably one of the best depictions of language use that I've seen. So the rule of thumb is let's characterize all students with dignity, respect, and actually characterize all people the way we would like to be characterized ourselves. And for those of you who have kids, the way we would like to see our kids characterized. And I really think this is important because language really sets the tone. And I think it creates the weather. And I think if we believe in kids, we do more to support learning effectively. We do more to help them become independent. And I think we are physically and mentally healthier too when we are positive and promote that self sense of well-being. So these are really, really important things. The next one is what needs to go is inclusion is for some students. So I believe that everyone can be included. That's a big, bold statement. Sometimes kids may do something to earn their way out. So my example might be a really significant behavioral type of thing that promotes a really big safety hazard. But if that happens, what is the reintegration or support plan for that student to get back to the general classroom or the least restrictive environment? A lot of school districts will ask me, this is our fifth and last one, what do we need to do to make it happen? And these are some things that I found out that have been really successful. So we have some leaders today. I'm a leadership retreat to look at how do we promote inclusive practice in our district. Book studies. So there's really wonderful schools that are having book studies and learning about how we promote inclusive practice. One that people use is You're Gonna Love This Kid by Paula Kluth. Widening the Circle by Mara Sapan-Shevin. People use my From Disability to Possibility quite a bit. And these help people examine where's our school at and what are steps we can take. Another thing is district and building level teams. So an overall district team and a building level team to help look at how do we put things into practice. And the next one is visiting other districts, classrooms that are successful, and staff and parent leadership and professional development, learning about different topics that promote inclusivity in our schools, model demonstration with thinking big, starting small, sharing what we're doing with other schools and within our district, and expanding it for further creation. I wrote a chapter in Richard Villa and Jackie Thousand's book, Caring for Effective School Education, and it's called You Can Teach an Old Dog New Tricks. Old dog doesn't have to do with age of anyone, just outdated practices, which this is all about. So I want to ask a question. This is our final question. What have you learned from the pandemic? And I'm really interested, Tim, with the last opportunity for us to communicate with our group, what is that learning point that you've learned? I think a big thing for me is I've learned how much I really truly value schools and teachers and learning and all the different ways that we make that happen on a regular basis. And it's hard right now because it is limited, but educators have been my champions because people are getting through this and making differences every single day for kids. Tim, has anything come forward from our participants?
Absolutely, Patrick. I want to say real quick for myself, I have learned that teachers are very resilient. We have heard so many great examples in all of the other webinars we've been doing of the things teachers have learned to do because the pandemic has forced them to change the way that they teach. And in fact, I think it's actually broadening the horizons of so many of the teachers. One speaker, one of our attendees says, I've learned that I really love my husband because we've been in this apartment together 24/7 for 6 months. So that's actually really helpful.
That is great.
And Kino says, I've learned that doing virtual IEP meetings are not as difficult as they seemed at first, which is
Good,
great.
and
a great
you
skill.
go, making it happen day to day.
Stephanie, a great one. I've learned that it's okay to disagree with the norm of the school as long as you respectfully talk and explain your reasons why.
That's part of collaboration. Excellent. We can agree to disagree, and everybody's point of view is valid.
And then Carolyn, the power of human interactions. We hold each other up. And I have to tell you, when we kind of have lost a lot of our human interactions, it's great to see that that was really important to us and that we want to continue it. Denise, we need to continue innovating. Don't get stuck. Maureen, valuing the power of connection, reaching out to students and families to see how they're doing. I've learned that I can teach from home and be successful. How fantastic is that? And Alejandro, I've learned how capable and good with technology our students are. Isn't that great to be able to see something that your students have a real, when we look at what our challenge is and find out that they have these skills and this flexibility and this resilience that we maybe didn't expect that they would. Brenda says the pandemic has taught us to be more flexible, quick problem solvers, creative, learning technology to engage students, and much education will be more appreciated and respected. So,
oh my gosh, that should be a book.
Right, right.
Most definitely. Everybody, thank you so much today for what you have all brought forward and making this kickoff to this fine conference such a success. Thank you for inspiring me. This is like the best start of the day that I've had this entire week, and it's now Friday and the weekend. So thank you for that. And teachers, you are my champions and continue to be. I think you hold the most important job in the world. And what that is teaching kids. So I've always said, teachers are the people that make it happen. You inform all the other professions. My job description for a teacher is you hand out life chances, and keep out handing those great life chances to all kids by what you do day to day. And you are so important. And thank you for coming to this conference today. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you, Tim, once again. I'm so happy we got to be together. And everybody, it's been an honor. Have a great rest of your conference and weekend. We love you. Thanks for what you do.